Here I'm talking about the alloy production, again chrome on the left and manganese on the right, and you could see very easily that majority of the areas showing a drop in chrome alloys production, and we are expecting about about 11% production of chrome alloys in this year, and about 7%, 6 to 7% in manganese alloys on the right side. Coming to the manganese phase, it's slightly different because manganese production which is consumed in India are located across all 4 regions, and they are all closer to the mills. So hence the steel mills were not so much affected because for supplies, though their production was overall in a very low levels in the second quarter because of the lockdowns, etc. And the transport restriction during our shutdown from 24th of March to about almost 2 months. I would like to just summarize it in the following way. The one is we feel that the government policies and the stimulus efforts which is already announced or in the coming is going to come in the next few months will determine how fast the world can come out of this. The full recovery, again, as I mentioned earlier, of traded volumes pre-COVID would come back in 2022. That is our expectation. Most economies are going to also will do some things which will protect their local industries or national industries, just as a way of protecting. This would see some kind of an impact on the supply, on the trade flow, natural trade flows which we are used to. Some of it would get disrupted. That is what we expect. And any delay in vaccine beyond the year end, which we are expecting, or early next year, or a significant second wave in areas which has shown improvement so far, can also delay our recovery. But I am confident and optimistic that the world will bounce back, and as an industry, we shall overcome this unprecedented challenges soon.
So what happens is, the way we buy in North America is most customers buy on annual contracts. They lock in the business. And once they're locked in, the business runs on automatic during the year with the supplier releasing on a formula, normally on an index, which I'll get into next. Basically, when the credit limits were reduced or removed, it meant that the supplier suddenly had to change his contract terms with the customer. So you've got a customer A who's a big blue chip customer with millions of dollars of credit suddenly being told he's got to pay cash. And in many cases, that led to the customer going out and trying to buy elsewhere on a spot basis. So we had this COVID hitting, we had the steel mills cutting back, some of them stopping, some of them reducing, but at the same time, the ferroalloy industry went into convulsions in terms of how do we give credit to these customers. And that's played out over the last few months, and for the time being, the insurance companies haven't sort of relinquished that cutback. They still are on very reduced levels in terms of what they're allowing us to give credit to customers. So even today, in the last month, we've had customers and large North American customers who would normally buy once a year with open terms, calling us up saying their current suppliers just cut them off or won't release to them unless they pay cash. Would we give them terms? And it's happened on a whole lot of alloys, running from chrome to manganese to moly to vanadium. It seems to be a practice that's going on all over the customers. So the question really is, we're now entering the next phase in terms of quoting for next year. And the first large steel mills have started coming out of North America. And I think when you sit on the ferroalloy side, all of us have to first evaluate, can we give a customer credit or can't we? And if we can't, it's going to be cash. If not, it's going to be with some kind of limited credit terms based on the insurance we can get.
And on the right side, you will see consideration by main regions, what have recently happened in the industry. And you see that China is basically still growing production, and despite the drop in the first quarter, we don't have, of course, the figure for 2020. Until 2019, it was growing. And following the growth in China's stainless steel industry, and actually China was the only growing region for ferrochrome, despite all the depressive situation in the markets until 19. But in 2020, it was affected, especially in the first quarter. We don't have data for third quarter, but in the second quarter, we have seen recovery, but moderate recovery due to still depressed price situation. Kazakhstan and Russia was basically the only region which has not been severely affected in production because there was no industrial lockdown there. And despite these regions are not growing since there was new production launched in Kazakhstan in 2016, but it has shown stable production of ferrochrome. South Africa was the most affected by the drop in ferrochrome market already since second half of 2018 and especially in 2019. And combined with other issues, especially with the electricity, ongoing electricity issues, and as well as competition between independent producers of indirect competition between independent producers of chromo, which is usually to producers who have no exposure to ferrochrome production, and selling its chromo into Chinese market. And on the other hand, integrated ferrochrome producers who produced charged chrome in South Africa and sold it to China, competing with the domestic ferrochrome, which is produced from independent chromo shipped from South Africa.
So what's happening in India today is, as I said, the three commercial mines which were feeding the market has stopped for a short while. And then, as I mentioned, we have started back one of them. And the only other supplier of chrome ore in the Indian market is the state mining company called Orissa Mining Corporation, the OMC, which has also stopped for a month or so, a couple of months now for COVID. So as a result, overall, there was a bit of concern around possible supply disruptions. People are seeing less ore availability in the market, etc., which has resulted in a temporary price increase in the domestic market.
I think the impact from COVID on ferroalloys is that the sellers of the ferroalloys have lost all appetite to take risk. I think it's gone. So what's happened is you've got a whole different setup of how we're going about trying to do our business. We're trying to do it, you're willing to buy material from a producer overseas if you know you can sell it, and essentially if you've sold it already. So I think the times of people taking a chance and taking more risk seems to be out of the door for the time being.
On the other hand, as I said already, that ferroalloys industry and especially ferrochrome industry was already, it's not about the threat from the COVID, it was for the production volumes. Main threat for production volumes was coming from the depressed market conditions, and this is not over, it's still there. I would say that recovery, which should have happened quicker in order to not to allow deficit in the market, hasn't happened in the beginning of the first quarter or in the middle of the first quarter due to the threat to the demand which comes from the COVID situation.